Welcome to Giants Nation player profiles and projections, and today we got a solo episode. We are talking about Giants quarterback Jaxson Dart. He gets his own episode. Grump, I'm Bobby Skinner here with my co-host of Football Grump. So the Giants got what they think is their franchise quarterback. They traded picks 34 in the second round, 99, and then next year's third round pick to trade up to pick 25 and select Jaxson Dart. We'll talk about his, what we have as scouting wise, everything, break it down. That's why he's getting his own episode, because we want to go into detail of what he's good at, what things he struggles at, what things we haven't seen from him yet. But it's been kind of waiting on this one, a first round quarterback player profile.
Yeah, and I think Giants fans are waiting for a rookie quarterback on a rookie deal. So 6'2", 225 pounds, only 22 years old. So he's right in the wheelhouse of what you're looking for in a rookie quarterback. And the early returns are, early returns, and they don't mean a ton, but they don't mean nothing, and they've looked pretty good. And so things to keep in mind about, Daniel Jones having like a $40 million contract. Right now, you're looking at a guy who is impressing Giants fans and making $3 million this year. And by 2028, still not even eclipsing $5.5 million. So a big deal, lots to talk about in this one.
Yeah, so I do want to make this disclaimer, because I was like, how much do we let the preseason infiltrate this conversation? Because on these player profiles, we try to do as little as possible, but with rookies, we'll make a slight concession. But I decided I'm not going to let much talk about it. One, because he's not going to play right away anyways. And then number two, I hate to reference this, but I went back and I was like, how good was Daniel Jones's rookie preseason? Because I put together Jaxson Dart's deep passing clips just because I wanted to, and he was 1 for 6, but there was drops. So, I thought it was a good clip, even though the stats weren't good. But I was like, what was Jones on deep passing? 7 of 7, right? He was, he only completed 5 passes. He had an average depth of target of 13 yards. He was throwing the deep ball deep 20% of the time. I mean, it was something playing consistently like that would have been the best quarterback in the NFL. And it was just even a totally different style. Obviously, there's a different Jones between 2019 and 2024. So that obviously goes in there. But I don't want to use preseason much in this. So I want to start with this, going through my Jaxson Dart draft write-up, pre-draft on him. And then we'll divulge into what the things he's really good at, the things he's kind of good at, the things he struggles with, and the things that he could be really bad at. So I'm just going to read right through it. Jaxson Dart, 6'2", 223 pounds, 9.5-inch hands, completed 69% of his passes last year, 4,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, 6 interceptions with 650 rushing yards, took 28 sacks. Kiffin, quarterback with 53% play action usage, was aggressive with good arm and athletic ability. Arm talent is fairly good, throws an aesthetically pleasing ball. Can throw a really nice deep ball, but it also dies out at 50 yards. Deep accuracy can be hit or miss. Accuracy is mostly good, but has routine misses and pressure effects. Good runner, can get what's there and a bit more, but not the, I put not most elusive. The context is not like your Lamar, Jaden Daniels types. Fearless, giving wide receivers a chance downfield on sideline or the middle of the field. Will look to split the safety who is stationary up the middle. Will throw ball into double coverage downfield. Trust the offense to throw passes with anticipation, especially over the middle. No fear ripping his first read over the middle. Good timing, getting balls to receivers out of their breaks. Loves to throw the sail versus cover 3. That's been a big preseason concept they use. It's probably the most NFL-ready concept he uses. Often his first read, check down, run is as a consistent plan. Late to things that aren't his primary read. Does not get to the backside of progressions often enough. Quick game is bad, not on the menu much, and doesn't see spacing. That's one of those we haven't seen much because they didn't run it at Ole Miss. Eyes go down when first read isn't there, or with pressure. Escapes from clean pockets too often. Plays hurried, gives up on concepts over linebackers, defenders, not giving clear declaration. Has end-of-game disasters versus LSU, Florida, and somewhat Kentucky. Tried to throw 4 interceptions at end of UF game. So some good stuff in there, some stuff that I'm worried about. But I will say this, at least the stuff that I'm worried about is very fixable, and he has first round talent. You know, he's not your top end of the NFL talent wise, but he has like no. I was talking with either I can't remember if it was Trevor Sycamore about Jackson Dart when we were talking about his talent level, and we're like, if he fails, no one's going to look back and say he just didn't have the talent.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that some of the stuff was a confine of the offense that he was working in. Like, it just didn't ask it of him, so there isn't film of it. Doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't evidence of him being able to do things. It is something that you are taking a risk on for sure when you pick him because you want to see that film of him actually doing it. But there is instances of him working through his reads and progressions. The Lane Kiffin offense does not really ask a whole lot of the quarterback to do a whole bunch post snap. A lot of college offenses don't ask you to do that. Um, I mean, some of the things that I think are impressive. How about just the consistency of playing in the SEC and always being a competitor there, always being impressive in I would say probably the hardest conference in college football, at least currently. I'm not here for an argument among college fans, but um, always had a pretty good touchdown to interception ratio through the 3 years that he was there. I believe he also in 2021, he was actually at USC and ended up leaving when Lincoln Riley showed up and brought in Caleb Williams. I think he also had a knee injury that year.
I don't know.
He didn't play the full season, and he only had like 189 passes that year, but every year he got better too, and that's another thing that I look for. You know, a lot of times, there's maybe only 1 year that's good with a college player. Every single year at Ole Miss, he got better. 3,000 yards in 2022 on, 226 completions, 62.5% completion rate. 2023, 65% completion rate, went up to 3,300 yards. And then a far better touchdown to interception ratio from 20 touchdowns to 11 interceptions in 22, 23 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in 2023. And then in 2024, you mentioned 276 completions on about 400 throws, 69% completion percentage and 4,200 yards, 29 touchdowns to 6 interceptions. Every single year got a little bit better. Now he took more sacks each year too, but I like that, he started to hang in the pocket a little bit more. Now, the film from college tells you that he does escape the pocket too often too quickly. Dane Brugler said that his eyes went down too early at times. It's certainly there on the tape. Um, I don't think though that he tried to play hero ball at any point. I don't think that there's a ton of I'll say in terms of doing things with his legs. If anything, he escapes a little bit early and he's got a downfield mindset. Um, but not a whole lot of like trying to extend plays and to the detriment of the offense. Does know when to give up on stuff. Um, as far as being a mobile runner and just a mobile quarterback in general, I think that he does have good instincts and good pocket presence and timing. Like, I know we're saying that he has escaped the pocket too early at times, and it's certainly there on tape enough for us both to have notes on it. But in general, I think he just has that internal timing is pretty good. And he's good at avoiding the rush that's in his face and on his front side while keeping his eyes downfield and waiting for certain things to develop, for waiting for his read to develop. One of the most impressive things I think is just him throwing the ball with zip and anticipation, especially over the middle. The anticipation I think could get a little bit better when it's outside the hashes. I think that he's sometimes waiting for the break to happen, but when it comes to over the middle, when he sees what he needs to see in his keys on the defenders that he's reading, he will throw before guys are out of their break. And I think that we're seeing that again. We're not going to talk about preseason much, but we're seeing that continue to develop at the NFL level now. So those are not isolated incidents, I don't think.
Yeah, and let's like talk about the Ole Miss offense a little bit, and because it's sometimes we just like sometimes we're talking about like, oh yeah, Tennessee offense, but it's like, what do you mean by like it doesn't transfer? So there is like some NFL stuff in the Ole Miss offense, right? That sale concept, which is a 3 level high to low read. That is like that's like the first concept I put on his film breakdown. As like this is the NFL concept that he runs the best, right? He throws this with anticipation and aggression. And there is some NFL stuff. It's just there's a few things. One, the quick game, just like NFL quick game, was rare, and it was bad when they ran it. Right now, he didn't get a ton of repetition doing it because they didn't do it very often, and he just struggled to see the spacing of it. At Ole Miss, he just rarely got to the backside of his progression on the read, and but the offense was also built on a lot of first read or bust, and he was aggressive in that first read. He wasn't, to his credit, he wasn't taking the sack, but I also got him in trouble times. Um, and then just like, within that, there was times where his first read wasn't there. He either forces it or again his eyes go down looking to either find a running back or run. So the legs can be a benefit, or not the legs, but like the quickness, like you said, to scramble can be a benefit, but it can also be uh, a detriment as well too, because sometimes you're giving up on a play too early and you're just putting your eyes down, looking to get some yards out of the play. Now, again, I told myself I wouldn't reference preseason too much, but the Gunnar Olszewski 50-yard catch against the Patriots, that was Dart not trusting that was a quick game concept that Dart should have thrown. He could on both sides of the progression. There's a front side and a back side. Both side, the read was open. He doesn't, but he uses his legs, scrambles, and then finds Gunner, and ends up being, his longest completion of preseason is off of a missed read throw. So again, that's where that helps young quarterbacks, is because they're not gonna, even the guys who are the most ready are not gonna see stuff. They're gonna make mistakes, but if they play with the instinctives, they'll get themselves out of trouble at times. And there's gonna be other times too where you're frustrated, where you're like, man, get rid of the ball, find somebody. Instead, you're taking a sack. Where in preseason you're facing basic 4-man rushes almost exclusively. Um, and when you get to the regular games, there's gonna be more game plan. There's gonna be more, muddying up where you think the lane is gonna be to run. But let's talk about his deep passing, because I think that's one of the things that Brian Daboll, liked his talent, but also his aggression. He you look at his highlights, and there is beautiful passes throwing the ball down the field. And even in preseason was really good throwing it down the field. He threw the ball 20 plus air yards 22% of the time, which is the most of his class. Now, being said with that, he also had, turnover rate, was higher than most of the guys in his class, with Ward, Shador, Milrow, Shug, Gabriel, Howard, other guys. Um, Essentially every QB in this class who was draftable outside of Riley Leonard. Um, he completed 42% of his deep passes, which is a good number. Um, still lower than some of those guys on the list, but that, like, if you're throwing the ball 22% in the NFL and completing 42%, you're the best deep ball passer in the NFL. You're throwing it more than anybody, and you're like top 10 at completion rate. So if you mix those two, I think you're the best. So here's where this is where it's a hard thing to transfer to the NFL. You can't throw the ball deep 22% of the time in the NFL, or else you're Will Levis and you stink. You're aggressive, but you stink. For Giants fans, anything that is aggressive sounds good, but not all aggression is good. Um, Here's where the deep ball with me gets, like, again, I like the aggression. There's some dimes in there. I do see the ball at like 50 yards or so start to die out, right? And kind of fall to that inside shoulder of the receiver. Um, and I think it shows up the most, and when you look at his SEC versus non-conference splits, where like his non-conference, he throws the ball deep 20% of the time, completed 65%. I mean, that's unbelievable. 163 yards per game off that, 11 touchdowns, 1 interceptions. Beautiful numbers. In the SEC games, he actually throws it at a higher rate, which I think one of his things is when there's pressure or he doesn't see it, he defaults like, I'm just going to throw it and give it a shot, which I do like some of that. But the completion percentage goes down to 30%, and then he has 6 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Like those aren't very good numbers. Those would be bottom of the NFL. So it's when he gets into regular season action, which is not going to be right away, it is finding that balance between aggressive and reckless, because reckless can be fun at first, but eventually it'll get you canned.
Yeah, and that's the thing there. So I'll start with a couple of things. The passes in general. I think that he has good footwork, and the good footwork leads to generally very strong passes. Good lasers, good anticipation, good ball placement, even downfield. Now, yes, the ball does flutter out at about 50 air yards. That's not horrible as far as quarterbacks go. That's about, average to above average in terms of big arm strength. And I would say dies out, not like lollipop. Like, Giants fans will be familiar with Tyrod Taylor basically launching mortars just to get it 40 air yards downfield, allowing all kinds of DBs to make up ground and make plays on the ball. Um, I don't think that we're going to see that with Jaxson Dart. I think that he can put things on a rope and be pretty accurate, very deep. Um, Now moving into the aggression. So he is pretty fearless to fit things into tight windows, um, especially when it's things like over the middle, even at the intermediate level with that anticipation. When he sees what he likes, he's just gonna rip it and it looks good most of the time. Now downfield, that's where reckless really starts to show up. And I think that those numbers could have been worse last year. There were some dropped interceptions, I think, that would have made those numbers look horrendous. And reckless really is the right word because even if it works early on, defenses in the NFL are going to key in on tendencies. And just like you said, if your tendency is when pressure's in my face, fuck it, chuck it football, um, believe me when I tell you Steve Spagnuolo and guys like that will understand, get pressure in this kid's face and make sure that we're bracketing coverage on the
Well, look at
on the
Will
deep route.
Levis. First game, 5 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Titans got their QB, and then look at it, less than a year later, where it's like this is guy's the biggest disaster in the NFL. Like it's from the Giants' point of view, and instead of just talking like if we were just an NFL draft show and we were talking about Jaxson Dart, we would just talk about the aggression. From the Giants' point of view, because we have been bottom of the league and deep passing rate for so long, it's aggression has become synonymous with good, and it certainly should be good, but just aggression in itself is not that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I there is a fine line. Maybe when you do switch over at a certain point from aggressive to reckless. You can't really be both. It comes down to your tendencies, how often you do it, and how predictable it is. Um, I think that NFL defenses are just a lot smarter. They study film a lot better. These guys have played in the league for a very long time. They have coaches that this is their whole job now. So that kind of thing where in college and also it's not a shock to me that his non-conference games he had such a higher, you know, rate of completion on the deep ball. I mean, it's one of the biggest differences between college and the pros is, the defensive backfield and their ability. Um, One thing I will say though for him, not to completely change the subject, but one thing that I kind of noticed is Trey Harris was his number one receiver. When he went down, we didn't really see a dip in production. Um, he got injured, I believe, halfway through the Florida game, and that really didn't affect what Jaxson Dart was. And I think that that's a trait that it's I think that he could make the most like, that aggression can lead to giving his players a chance to succeed. Like, if he sees the one-on-one coverage that he likes, I don't think that it necessarily matters whether or not it's his number 1 receiver or what. He likes what he sees, he's gonna throw it, and it's up to that receiver to make the play. And I think that that is what will translate to the next level because you're gonna have a rotating cast. Um and, we don't wanna say this, but, like, Malik Neighbors may not play all 17 games, and you're gonna have to figure something else out. So, uh, I think that that goes into that aggression trait that he has.
One of the key metrics for quarterbacks too is hydration, and this episode is brought to you by Body Armor. What? This episode is brought to you by Body Armor Sports Drink. Rewrite your routine and choose better with Body Armor. Body Armor is real hydration with electrolytes, coconut water, and no artificial dyes, flavors, or sweeteners. With great tasting flavors like strawberry banana and orange mango. That's what I got in my hand right now. Body Armor will level up your hydration game. Grab Body Armor Sports Drink today at your local grocery store. Body Armor. Choose better. Um,
I'll
outside
be
of the
glad
deep,
you did.
you'll be glad you did. Outside of the deep passing, um, with Dart, the good things is, like I said, I do think that he gets stuff out with good timing, um, like trust receivers, like you said, to make plays. He's gonna throw them that ball out of the break. Like you got to have eyes on the quarterback when you get out of your break, whether that's a corner route, a dig route, whatever. When it's on the front side, like I said before, I think he can be late to get to the backside of some stuff. And you saw a little bit of that in preseason, not much. Um, but again, that also goes with like we got to see that a little more against NFL defenses and the NFL offense because that system is kind of built on just trust of it, right? Where I talk about it being 53% play action and then not even being NFL play action. You know, it's RPO glances with slants that are 15 yards down the field. It's, you know, throwing the deep posts. And then once that's there, that's where you can get in trouble. And this is where, and I want to talk about at the end how they're going to develop him when he does get on the field, not just talking about like, oh, he's going to sit and sitting is magic. Um, but let's go through like the kind of the end of stuff before we get into like what it looks like when he gets on the field. So we talked about, you know, running, aggression. Uh didn't see like I talked about didn't see much of like quick game passing concepts when they did do them. I don't think he did a very good job of them. Just didn't trust the spacing on them. The last like negative I think is, and this is we won't ever get to see this until we get into the NFL regular season, is panic at the end of the games. And it goes a little bit to the deep thing where we're like, sometimes he just reverts to just chuck it. Um, and you look at their three SEC losses, Florida, LSU, and Kentucky, and you had all of that, right? Florida, you know, rolling out overthrow against double coverage, you know, interception at the triple coverage, simply just throwing the thing that was there earlier in the game and hoping it was going to be there. Like was not making a read at all. He just guessed pre-snap and threw it there. You know, he threw a sail into quadruple coverage, a miscommunication, an interception on a conversion route, and an interception where maybe he was trying to throw it away, but he threw it into then LSU. You know, in the fourth quarter, underthrown ball into double coverage. Yeah, or in the overtime, you know, or sorry, the fourth quarter throws an underthrown ball into for an interception. They get to overtime. He throws an underthrown ball into double covers. The next play, a dropped interception. Kentucky, he actually on the last drive had one of the craziest play of his film on a 4th and 11, where he just kind of just literally jumping up and chucks the ball, and a tight end comes out with it down the field. Then he has a 34-yard, you know, a missed throw from the 34-yard line. He rolls out, takes a sack, pushing out of field goal range. Then he scrambles and fumbles and ends up being overcalled, thankfully, to a penalty. Like so, there are 3 losses. He contributed to them at the end of the game. So, but let's talk about when he gets on the field. This is where I'm going to pull from preseason. It is very clear that Brian Daboll's way of growing him, and I actually agree with this plan by Brian Daboll, is not, hey, we're going to go put you in there. We're going to let you see NFL defenses. We need you to learn from that. We're going to give you tough concepts. What Brian Daboll's going to do is he's going to make him as comfortable as possible. So we're going to see a good amount of RPO stuff. We're going to see the NFL concepts that he ran at Ole Miss. You're going to see a lot of those be run. You're gonna see hurry up offense. You know, I can't remember how many Ole Miss games I watched every single one. I think 4 or 5 times. And the first drive, it was like almost every time they score running the hurry up offense, and then the offense would slow down as they get. They're gonna run hurry up offense to try and get some points up on the board at the beginning of games or the beginning of halves or at random moments of the game to try and take advantage of the things that Dart is comfortable with and not let the defense adjust. Uh, and allow Dart to get to the comfortable reads that he's at. You're going to see some, you know, misdirection. You know, we saw the touchdown in preseason where they fake the toss out of their gun and find the tight end with the seam. So basically what I'm saying is outside of like this one concept that it's Brian Daboll's favorite concept in preseason, you kind of saw him running almost exclusively things that he ran at Ole Miss, you know, like because there is things from Ole Miss that are transferable to the NFL, and they spam those things for him.
Yeah, and I think that when it comes to young quarterbacks and their adjustment into the NFL, and especially quarterbacks that have and that are coming from an offense that doesn't ask them to do a lot of NFL things, it's important that you keep their confidence high, and this is an easy way to keep his confidence high. Get easy completions. They talk about this all the time with quarterbacks and keeping their confidence high. I think even in the very beginning of the 2007 Super Bowl, Troy Aikman was talking about, you know, the first pass from Eli Manning, and his first Super Bowl appearance was a nice, easy. I don't remember what the hell it was, but He mentioned that it was really important to get some nice, easy ones in early and get the jitters out and just start playing football. And I think that that's what it comes down to is that always remember that you're just playing football. You're just doing what you're doing. Just because the stage is bigger and the guys are better doesn't mean that you don't belong here. And I think that this is part of Brian Daboll's plan is he's giving him some comfort things while also sprinkling in some things to keep him off balance. We saw already that he had him just run in for a random play for Russell Wilson and have to just go on the fly. We also saw that and I think this was Dan Duggan asked Brian Daboll about this was he was supposed to start a drive, start the game and just shut off the communications. All right, just you're gonna have to shout from the sideline. Just keeping him on his toes and getting him while also keeping all the concepts that he's comfortable with. So acclimating him to the things that are like going to be off kilter, but keeping him within the confines of what he's comfortable with. And I think that you're right. The up tempo stuff is definitely going to be a part of the everyday offense or the week by week offense, and slowly expand his knowledge base and comfort zone outside into more and more NFL concepts, but letting him expand out from what he's already very good at.
And I wanna finish off saying this too when it comes to his development. He needs a second year. Like, I again, this is where I said at the beginning, preseason, it is fun. It's certainly better to be good than bad, obviously. You know, like, and they use it, it's just preseason for I like saying it's just preseason when I'm talking about good things more than I do bad things. Um, but we've seen over and over again, don't let that be the time to say this guy's ready or whatever, or see, I was right about this guy. Um, if he struggles, and this is I don't want to get into conversations about Joe Shane, Brian Daboll. Like rookie quarterbacks struggle sometimes, a lot, not sometimes, a lot of the times, you know, and he's not going to get a ton of games. So if he plays 7 games, and if they are 1-6 or 2-5 of those games, and he's bad in them, like that's doesn't mean I say that's okay because like hey, guys got to be given time to develop. But you know what? You know who also had bad rookie seasons? The bad quarterbacks. But this does not to be need to be a rush process. You know, like, he should be getting a second year unless we get extreme case scenario where everyone's fired, you have the first overall pick, and you whatever. Like, outside of, like, that extreme scenario, he should be getting a second year to develop. He has the talent. You know what you were getting when you drafted him out of a system that doesn't, translate to the NFL, 1-to-1, which most colleges don't do anymore, but you guys understand what I'm saying. He needs to be afforded time. This season for Jaxson Dart is not about winning games and getting the most out of him or saving the season. When he plays, it's it should be strictly about experience. And if the Giants are looking at it anything other than that, then I think they're doing him a disservice.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, the Giants are in a situation now where this year is sort of a mulligan for them. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it doesn't matter how the season turns out. Like you said, there is an extreme scenario where they're so bad and things go so wrong that people could just get fired and we could be starting all over. But they've put themselves in a position where that shouldn't be the case, even with the tough schedule. And they are now in the position they have the freedom of movement with the quarterback room that they've assembled and I guess the leash that they have with, signing a Russell Wilson and then drafting a Jackson Dart. They have the freedom to only play him when they feel he is ready and when they are ready to bring him out there. There's no reason for him to be starting week 1. There's no reason to be forcing him out there, week 4. Now, I know that there are Giants fans that feel like, if the Giants lose the first 4 games, it's time to bench Russell Wilson and put Jackson Dart in. And there's, Chase Daniels is already saying
Yeah,
they should be playing.
screw these analysts who are just looking to get you to click on their videos and get you hyped up, dude. Like, it frustrates me because it's like, man, I know what you're doing. You're playing the freaking game. You're playing the game of trying to get most people to watch your preseason breakdowns, and just saying he has a good preseason isn't enough. You gotta say he's ready to play right now. When in reality, is you look at these preseason games, like, this is basic as shit. They are rushing 4 consistently. They are playing soft coverages. They are not disguising anything. They're not playing, a ton of press man, and when they are, you should be able to find a matchup. Like, it actually bothers me that there is NFL analysts who played the position who are trying to rush this along just to get the hype train going. Like, I've seen it with other quarterbacks happen, and now that it's happening to him, I was like, "Man, you guys, how many p" it's one thing for us as fans to get overexcited, like, "This guy might be ready." For the guys who are supposed to be unbiased and know to see what happens preseason after preseason of it not translating from, preseason to week 1, and I'm talking about guys who are rookie quarterbacks who start week 1, where they have these awesome preseasons, and then come week 1, it's a struggle. That is very frustrating when I see that. It's like, "Man, stop playing the damn game. You said pre-draft this guy's not ready. Why are you letting, 40 throws in the preseason against basic defenses, against backups change your opinion on that?" It's about development. It is not about saving a season.
Yeah, I agree, and there is a chance that Brian Daboll likes Jackson Dart so much that he plays very early in the season, but I think I've been pretty consistent in saying that there's no reason for him to play until the very end of this season. That this is somewhat of a mulligan year even for Brian Daboll and Joe Shane, for the Giants organization. They have a competitive roster, but their future is clearly invested in this kid, and any forcing along just to try and get more wins this year would only, I would think, only be a detriment to the development of Jackson Dart. Again, unless they actually feel that he is ready. There is no reason to force him. But I do think that he gets playing time this season. I'll say that.
Oh, absolutely, and I want him to get play unless we're in the scenario where the Giants are just winning games and making the playoffs with Russ. I want him to play. I'm not of the mindset of like, "Oh, you gotta let him sit the whole season." Like, if we're not winning games, I'd like to see him see the last 5 games, right? Not to see what we have in him, but to give him experience. So, all right, that's an episode. We will see you guys tomorrow. Until then, let's go Big Blue.